All right, welcome back. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the one piece of technology that's basically the secret engine behind everything you hear about in AI. I'm talking ChatGPT, DALL-E, you name it. And it's called the Transformer. So let's just get right to it. You've probably noticed this. It feels like 1 minute AI was kind of clunky and awkward, and then boom, seemingly overnight, it's writing poetry and creating these incredible realistic images. So the big question is, how on earth did AI get so smart, so incredibly fast? Well, the answer comes down to solving one really, really big problem. And to get it, you've got to see the before and after. So over on the left, that's the old AI. You'd give it a sentence like, I am from Italy, I like horse riding, I speak, and it just fizzles out. It completely loses the plot, It's forgotten that key detail from the very first sentence. But then after Transformers, look at the right. It nails it. I speak Italian. It made the connection. So what changed? Well, this was the central problem, what we're calling the context crisis. It's all about why those older AIs were okay with tiny tasks, but just couldn't remember the beginning of the story by the time they got to the end. See, the old way, and this was used by models called recurrent neural networks, was to process everything in a line, one word at a time, kind of like a game of telephone. It reads I, then it processes am, and it passes a tiny bit of memory forward. Then it gets to from, and so on. But you can probably guess what happens, right? With every new word, that original memory gets fainter and fainter. And here's the real kicker. This one word at a time thing created a massive memory bottleneck. By the time the model got to the end of a long sentence, let alone a whole paragraph, it had pretty much forgotten what it read at the start. It just couldn't handle those long-range connections. So how did we fix this digital amnesia? Well, that brings us to the hero of our story, the Transformer. And this wasn't just an update. It was a total, fundamental shift in how AI even reads. Okay, so what is a transformer? In simple terms, it's a type of neural network, which is really just a fancy way of saying a computer system modeled on the brain. But it does something completely different. Instead of that one word at a time chain, it looks at the entire sentence, all at once. It gets this bird's eye view, not tunnel vision. And that lets it see how every word relates to every other word, all at the same time. And this really is the perfect way to picture it. You go from this fragile chain, where each link barely knows the one before it, to seeing the whole puzzle laid out on the table. And here's the thing. This didn't just solve the memory problem. Because it could process in parallel, it made training these models ridiculously faster. And that's what allowed us to build the massive, powerful AI models we have today. But wait a minute, if it's looking at the whole picture at once, how does it know which parts are actually important? Well, that brings us to its secret weapon, a brilliant idea called self-attention. This is the perfect analogy. Just think about it. You're at a loud party, music is blaring, people are talking, but you can zero in on the one person you're having a conversation with. Your brain just knows to focus on their voice and tune out the rest. Self-attention lets the AI model do basically the exact same thing, but with words in a sentence. So for any given word, the self-attention mechanism scans the entire sentence and gives every other word a score, basically weighing how important it is for understanding the first word's true meaning. It's constantly asking itself, okay, to really get this word, which other words should I be paying the most attention to? Let me give you a super simple example. Take this sentence, he lies down. Self-attention helps the model figure out that the word down is absolutely critical for understanding the word lies. Without down, you might think he's telling a falsehood, but with it, you know he's reclining. That context is everything, and self-attention is how the model finds it. And once this breakthrough happened, the floodgates just burst wide open. It unlocked this absolute explosion of possibilities in areas people never even expected. So the most obvious place we saw this was in natural language processing. All of a sudden, AIs could summarize huge, dense documents. They could make virtual assistants like Alexa way smarter. And of course, they could generate text that was coherent, relevant, and just shockingly human. Machine translation got a huge upgrade too. The fluency and accuracy of tools like Google Translate got way better, almost overnight. And that's because the model could finally understand the full context of a sentence instead of just translating word by word. But here's where it gets really wild. Researchers had this amazing idea. What if DNA is just another kind of language? It's a sequence, right?
So they applied transformers to biology, and they're now using them to analyze genetic code and even predict the incredibly complex 3D shapes of proteins. That's a massive deal for discovering new drugs.
And, of course, creativity. This is the magic behind the image generators like DALL-E that we all play with. Transformers made it possible to mix and match different kinds of data, like your text prompt and millions of images, all in one incredibly powerful system. So let's bring it all together and talk about the legacy of the Transformer, because today there are absolute giants standing on the shoulders of this one idea. And here's the bottom line. The Transformer architecture, which was first introduced in this legendary 2017 research paper called Attention is All You Need, great title, right, is the direct foundation for pretty much every single famous large language model making headlines today. And you can really think of it as two main branches growing from that original trunk. On one side, you've got models like BERT, which are masters of understanding context. This is the tech that helps Google search figure out what you really mean. On the other side, you have models like GPT, which are masters of generating new stuff. And that, of course, is the engine that powers ChatGPT. Which brings us to a final, really fascinating thought. The Transformer was originally designed to master the sequence of human language. But as we've seen with DNA and images, its real power is in understanding any kind of sequential data. So now that it's pretty much conquered language, what's the next human domain it's going to completely revolutionize?